police officers, they have a lot of authority to go looking through your stuff. But what if someone looked through their stuff, specifically the stuff that they put online? Well, that's exactly what Emily Baker White from the Plainview Project did. Emily, welcome to the Damage Report.
Thank you for having me.
So the Plainview Project, I know what it is, but could you tell our viewers a little bit about what the Plainview Project is?
The Plainview Project is a database of publicly posted social media posts made by police officers. And the posts are all public Facebook posts that anyone with a Facebook account could see. And the database, which contains over 5,000 of these posts, most from current officers, but some from former police officers, shows a subculture of bias and violence in American policing today.
So when you say a subculture of bias and violence, what kind of stuff did you find by going through these people's Facebook profiles that you found to back up that claim?
Sure, we saw a lot of posts, memes, conversations where officers appeared to be endorsing violence against protesters, violence against people of color, violence against people accused of crimes. A number of officers seemed to endorse or encourage people trying to run over protesters with their cars. There were others where they talked about wanting to beat or kill or shoot suspects.
So does anyone, they're police officers, they're supposed to serve the public trust and protect the innocent. Did any of the police officers, when you were looking through their posts, was anyone on that chain being like, hey guys, this is public, maybe you shouldn't say something like that?
Rarely. We might have seen a couple of those, but there were certainly some people in the comments beneath posts. And that's one thing that's really important to note, is that a lot of these posts are posts that then have comment threads underneath. And we have redacted the names and faces of all of the people who made comments who we weren't sure were law enforcement officers. But in those comments, when there was a person that we were able to verify was a law enforcement officer, that person's comment has been included as well. And one of the things that we saw in the comments was you get this sort of toxic piling on culture, which I think social media may bring out in a lot of us, where the first person, the initial poster, will say something that's somewhat violent or perhaps somewhat seems to discriminate against a group of people. And then the post underneath just escalate and escalate. I would have kicked that guy more. Well, I would have punched him. Well, I would have shot him. They all need to be shot. Like there's a sort of toxic feedback loop where these officers seem to encourage one another to talk in a violent way.
Emily, it's JR. So we talk a lot about police violence and the way they overstep their bounds a lot of times. And also then training is brought up, the hierarchy is brought up, the chain of command, the higher ups and what they're doing or not doing or supportive of or covering for. Did you notice, this is a public database as you're saying, did you notice any higher ups from any of these departments having access to it? Or if they did anything about it, if any of these police officers have been reprimanded or fired over any of this?
So many officers in the database do have leadership positions. They're sergeants, some of them are lieutenants, et cetera. But how many sergeants, lieutenants, captains had access to this information, I don't know. Not everyone makes public who their Facebook friends are. So it may be that many more people in the department, even if they weren't engaging in this type of behavior, did see it on their feeds. Often we're friends with folks that we work with on Facebook. But that isn't information that I have. However, a large number of folks in leadership positions do appear in the database for things that they have said.
Yeah, so I was also wondering, so with this, any of the officers in question that have been exposed on this database, have they had a chance to respond, come up with excuses, reasons why they're doing this?
I think a few folks have started doing that on social media. They have not reached out to me directly. I know that departments and the folks investigating in these departments appear to be taking this very seriously. Commissioner Ross in Philadelphia, one of his first quotes to the local paper was, "I don't understand why this level of hate still exists in this country." And that seems like a really from the heart statement. He seems really worried about this. He seems really disturbed by it and like he wants to get to the bottom of it. And statements in other cities have been similar so far.
Has there been anyone who's come out and said, has gone after you for this, or is it pretty much universally like, we have to do something about this? And when you hear that, do you believe them, or are you just thinking this is a kind of cover for yourself kind of approach?
We've gotten some hate mail and some trolls, as the internet sometimes will provide, but that's okay. Internet trolls are everywhere. Do I believe them? I hope so. So far, they seem sincere. I think one of the really important things that will need to come down the line is we'll need to figure out, obviously they're reviewing a lot of information right now. Once they review it, let's see what they think, and let's see, what actions have been taken. And one thing I definitely think we need more accountability within the department. That's very clear from this. But I hope there's also a cultural change. I hope departments look at this and say, all right, not only do we have officers that did something that wasn't good for the department and that wasn't good for policing, but what I want is for officers to realize that this is counterproductive to the job that they're trying to do, right? It's incredibly important what police officers do. They are heroes, they protect us, and we need to know, everybody out on the street needs to know that a police officer will come and protect them in an emergency, no matter what they look like, no matter what their race, ethnicity, no matter how they pray. And one thing the thing that worries me most about this whole project is that there may be people out there who don't want to pick up the phone and call 911 because they're worried that a police officer who responds might not be in their corner because they are somehow different from that officer. And I hope departments take that to heart and really try, within the reforms that they take, to incentivize community policing, incentivize policing that gives people that faith rather than takes it away.
And just really quickly, how do people find this? Where do they go to get access to the Plainview Project for themselves?
The database is available at plainviewproject.org.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Emily Baker White. This is an amazing project, a vast undertaking, and we're really grateful for what you did. Everybody check that out. And thanks for being on the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.